Today we're talking about something that holds so many people back.
Yep.
I've experienced it.
So have I.
You've experienced it.
Many.
And it holds you back from success, from being fully present in your relationships maybe, fulfillment, happiness, peace,
A lot.
so many things. And it really consumes everyone. It's just a matter of what area of your life it's tied to. And it can be extremely destructive as well.
Yeah.
So we've dealt with all this.
Oh, yeah.
And so we
And a lot
thought
of
it would be a
different-
good conversation. You know, you and I discussed it'd be a good conversation to talk about
Yeah.
because where we're at now, we've learned a few things.
Hopefully.
Now that you're 64 and I'm, I'm just
You're
kidding.
25.
Now that, and I'm still 25. No, now that you're 25 and I'm 29.
Okay, yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll take it. Anyway, but we're talking about the power and impact in your life that fear has.
Can have a big hold on you. On
It's-
anybody.
It can bind you,
Yeah.
to your past.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
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 And it could block your relationship from your spouse. I mean, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. And
It's
it can be in
everywhere.
anything, in any avenue of your life you can pertain to. You could
Yeah.
probably pick out something.
And I think it's so important that, I mean, it's not only for young people to understand, and if they can understand it early, it's so much more impactful
Yeah.
because obviously, you know, we've got,
been through, yeah.
we're like at the 30-year mark in our marriage and a little bit past that in life. Wait, how can we be married 30 years and only be 26 and 29? Ah, shoot,
Man.
we just got busted.
Yeah. Gave it away.
Well, anyway, I think probably most people knew that we were shifting that a few years anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, if you could learn that early on, how impactful it would be into providing a much deeper relationship with and in everything, in everything,
Yeah.
because it creates all this chatter in your head, I think. And there's stories.
yeah.
There's stories that are often based on untruth. Make sense?
Yeah. Because you build it up.
Yeah. Is there a time that you remember or know of something that was a big fear that created a roadblock for you or limited you in some way?
One of my big ones, which I think is a lot of people's, is public speaking. That's a huge thing for me. And I remember years ago now, I was asked to speak at a
Yeah.
MOPS group that I was in.
Tell them what MOPS is, in case
Mothers
not
of
everybody
preschoolers.
knows.
I was a
wouldn't
mentor
know.
mom. I wasn't, so I was a mentor to these other moms. Anyway, so they asked me to get up.
All right,
and
you're just making known your age again.
Yeah. So that's why, anyway, so I had to speak and I was I get not crippling fear, but I get very anxious and because I'm not confident in my ability to speak in front of people and I get all messed up and whatever. So I tried like way ahead of time to write down what I was going to talk about. And literally the day before,
Did it all
there's
disappear?
No way. I was just like, I wasn't feeling it. And I was like, there's no way I can I felt like I just couldn't talk about it naturally or as much as I could. So anyway, then I
What do you
tried to-
mean? Did you feel like it wasn't as authentic as it should be? It was too manufactured. Not that it was
Yes.
fake,
Yes, I
but it
feel
was
like
too
I was
formatted
Yeah.
and polished and didn't feel
Yes.
as real.
right. So I
Okay.
just basically decided to kind of wing it, which is probably not the best thing to do. But I just
Welcome
talked
to my
on my
world.
experience, like my life experience, like because they want to know my story, cancer stuff, all that.
Yeah.
So that was easier for me to do. Just kind of.
Because you've internalized
Yes.
it. It's real. It's something you've walked through already.
Yeah, but I was a basket case, and I was so nervous, and I don't even hardly remember feeling my legs. Like I just was so.
Your legs went away?
They felt like it, and my
Your word.
sister-in-law, she was part of the group, and she was there. She's like, "You did so great! It was amazing!" Blah blah. And I felt like it was horrible. You know, even though I felt okay
Yeah.
about what I was talking about, I was so nervous. But I mean, other things like it doesn't even have to be public speaking. Like, what about you? What are things that you have felt
Well, let's stay on that topic for a minute.
for my issue?
Yeah, because there's
Oh,
a few
lot.
things to unpack there.
Yeah.
I think a big part of it is, first of all, public speaking is
everybody's
statistically known to be one of the greatest fears of people in
Right.
this life.
Yeah.
It's funny, and I get it.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of it in my time. So
But you handle yours, whatever. I know you told me you've had issues where, you get nervous or whatever, but
Oh, yeah.
you don't come across, you're pretty solid still.
well,
I am not.
but it
I
doesn't
feel
start
like-
that way. I mean, in time you get used to it. I'm not even sure the first time. I don't know if I really even remember the first time I spoke publicly, or when I was teaching and stuff.
Yeah.
Some of those things. I don't remember. It was so long ago. But I definitely know and
Yeah.
remember the feeling
Right.
and the butterflies you get, the shortness of breath, and all the things that really what's so funny
Anxiousness.
about it's all up here.
I know,
It's
it
all
is.
in your mind.
And
So
what does it come down to? What do you think? I was thinking to myself, what people think.
it does.
Your fear-
It's your ego.
Yeah.
It's your ego. And, there's when you study, now at this point, I've studied quite a bit of it because, at some point you have to, I wasn't authentic in the beginning because I thought I had to be like somebody or make myself look good and speak well and all those things. And what I learned in time was it really had nothing to do with me. It had to do with what am I providing for the people that I'm speaking to. They're not there to look at me and say, anything special about me. Who gives a rip about me? It wasn't about me. It was about the message that I
Right.
carry, that I'm imparting, same for you, to others. That was where the value was.
Yeah.
And now, so even like this is about as authentic as it gets.
Yeah.
Because there's, first of all, nice part is there's nobody here.
nobody watching,
There's a
yeah.
camera right here. But outside of that, and there could be, we have no idea how many people will see this video or consume it or find value in it.
Right.
But the point is, we're well past that point. So, and it makes it way more comfortable because you have to shift the perspective of me, and my performance to really it's about the people you're communicating to.
Yeah.
If you truly have a heart to impart something that can help somebody else or benefit them, improve their lives, or whatever it is that the conversation is about, then it becomes a completely different thing.
Yeah.
So that's public speaking in a
Right.
nutshell.
Right.
But it still is people's number one
Oh, I know.
fear by far.
Huge.
And that's, go ahead.
I was going to say, no, if you're still on that topic,
I was going to say that's kind of an overview. But what's cool about that story is when you shifted, some people believe, speaking in the spirit, whatever you believe the spirit is, or if you believe it's your own spirit, however you define that. But what it really means is you're speaking from the heart.
yeah.
I think it's synonymous with speaking from the heart instead of seeing yourself as the person everybody's watching and
Right.
putting yourself on a pedestal. It's an egotistical thing that, doesn't mean you're an egotist.
Right.
You just struggle with human nature.
Yeah.
So it's something we all kind of wrestle with a little bit. But the greatest thing that you could do, I always teach our girls,
it.
is whatever you're fearful of, whatever you're scared of. And we're jumping way ahead.
Yeah. We are.
But, is pressing in.
Yeah.
Is pressing into that
Yeah.
fear. But there are many other fears that are much more important because some people will never public speak in their lives.
No.
It will never be an issue. They've never thought about it. They'll never
Right.
be in the position, and that's okay. But
Totally okay.
there are fears.
What about you with work, like business?
Yeah.
I mean, having kids, when to have young couples fear like, oh, I'm not ready yet financially, to have kids or buy a house.
There's
or,
that.
There's all kinds of fears, but business really, I mean, you probably speak to that, just, I don't know about business, money, whatever, financial is a whole different thing. But
It kind of falls everywhere.
Yeah.
People are fearful of their relationships
Yeah.
failing.
Yeah.
Or fearful that, that relationship may not hold true.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe their spouse won't honor that, vow
Mm-hmm.
or commitment. It may be fear of over obsessing over your children and fear of their safety.
Yeah.
It could be fear of your financial situation. Maybe it's someone's in a tough spot and the money's just not there, and life happens to everybody and can knock somebody down quick, and fear can really, really consume you. But what I've learned in my perspective is it's always a voice in our head. It's a story that's created, a narrative in our head that we allow to permeate and have conversations or interaction with. Just because you're not speaking to a person,
Right, you can hear.
The two parts of your mind, your conscious and subconscious, they are always communicating, and you can't escape it unless you treat it like this. Hey, look, that's not okay. But it can consume you and bind you to reaching your fullest potential.
Yep.
Mine, in fact, when I was in my early 30s, remember the point where I went through that was anxiety.
Yeah.
And it was a tough time because the business was struggling, and that was tough. Let's see, that would have been, was that around the recession time when that was coming in? Because that would all make sense.
2000.
One of the hardest points of my life. Because
stressful.
For those who don't know, I'm an entrepreneur, so I run multiple businesses, and this was the main business that I knew, manufacturing company, and it was, the recession kind of knocked it down hard. It was tough. And things happen to people in their careers and businesses all the time. So you don't have to be a business owner. It could just be your job or whatever else, or maybe in that same time, people who got laid off. I mean, there was tons of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it was not only that pressure because you didn't work, so we didn't have a dual income. It was all on me, and that was our agreement. It wasn't for any other reason. So I acknowledge that. But the stress was so overwhelming, along with several other factors. You had a miscarriage in that time.
Oh, yeah.
And so 4 daughters.
Forgot about that,
And when the doctor gives you this expectation that there's your boy,
Yep.
that was pretty impactful to me.
Yeah.
So it just was like a storm that all came at the same time.
Yeah.
And in that time, that fear that was consuming me, and then the other factors that just kind of built onto it and latched on to help it grow, created heart palpitations. And then that just took all the fear to another level,
Yeah, that was scary.
stepping it up. Because remember when
I
you
could
could
see
literally
it.
see my
Yes.
chest, from
was
my heart beating so hard and out of rhythm and stuff, which then would scare me.
Right.
And then the fear that, oh my gosh, what if I don't wake up tomorrow because, I'm dying or my heart's failing or whatever else, when I'm like, I
And
don't
it's
know, what was I, like
building more
32,
of your-
30, 32?
Yeah, 32.
Ish.
Yep.
Yeah. So all that's fear. But what I learned is so significant in that time is that the fear affects everything else.
But what made you come to that? How did you come to that conclusion of all of that, figure that out?
Well, if you remember my path, I went to doctors.
Yeah.
And they found me physically healthy.
Right. Nothing wrong.
And so I'm like, okay, but I got this thing.
You did a stress test and everything, didn't
Stress
you? You
test,
did all that,
stuff. So it was a year. Remember, I would sleep on the couch because I couldn't fall asleep because
Scared.
the anxiety would pick up at night. And this is my situation, but anxiety does have a pattern
huge.
of picking up at night for folks. The reason being is because your mind is less occupied as during the day, whether you're at your job or everything else, to where you're not focusing on it.
Yeah.
So at nighttime, I'd be focused on it, on my fears, which then would create internal anxieties and affect my physical body. And it was just a storm.
Yeah.
And
you didn't tell, I didn't know, I knew that part, but there was a lot that you internalize a lot and just keep it to yourself. So I didn't know some of the other things that were really stressing you out as much as they were. You know what I mean?
And you didn't know because I don't tell anybody.
Right. That's just how you process things. You keep it internal.
So I keep it to myself. I feel like and I don't think that's right.
I don't either, but
But it's my way.
that's how you've been. Yeah.
It's hard for me to just change.
I know.
So let me just pause. I think it's super important that you have somebody. We were just talking about this in church. That you have somebody that you can have a conversation and lean on, that you trust, that's positive, that has your best interest at heart. And if if you're a person of faith and they're a person of faith, whatever it is, if not, that doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of somebody who has a like support system in belief as you do, which in other words, understands where you're at, will give you encouraging advice and honest advice to push you, to grow you, and those things that you can lean on. I just don't do well with that. So, and I didn't want to stress you with my situation of what I was dealing with. So I just kept quiet.
Yeah.
So with prayer and over time and things, I worked through it.
Yeah.
And I worked through it by first eliminating all the physical possibilities that could be wrong with me, you know. And after that, then it took about a year.
It was a long process. Yeah.
And then I came to the conclusion that, okay, I'm not one to wallow much in anything. I'm like, okay, give me a couple minutes, and then I hate the way that feels, and I'll self-direct because I just don't like the way that feels.
Yeah.
Everybody should learn and understand that concept because it's powerful.
It is. It's harder said than done.
It is harder said than done. But for me, I do that well.
Yeah.
But anyway, in time, then I realized it's all up here. And when I started working on what's up here in the conversation up here, everything else changed, and I slowly worked my way out of it. That's kind of how we got there.
Yeah.
But there's people who see this in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, in all different areas. But I was going to say another one. When you help me with that, the mindset like that is flying. I flew my whole life as a kid and whatever, and I was totally fine. As I've gotten older, for some crazy reason, I get more fearful, like the turbulence, whatever. And I know you're not supposed to wreck with turbulence, but anyway, you want that one time.
Well, you never know.
No, I know, but anyway, so I was really nervous and anxious, and you told me basically you're telling it's in your head, but in saying, and I always pray when I'm on the planes because I'm asking God to keep us safe. And
we're not saying the turbulence is in your head.
No, I'm saying the fear.
Yeah.
And so you said to me, you're like, there's nothing you can do about it. You can't control what happens with the plane, with the weather, whatever. So you need to, try and be mentally stronger, basically think that way. And I do. And ever since then, I still get fearful some, but I always remember what you told me, it's your mindset. If I can be like, God's got this, it's in his hands, whatever happens, I can't control it. Doesn't mean I don't still get scared a little bit, but that really helped me by realizing that, okay, I need to change how I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to die.
Yeah. So I used to teach on this topic. I don't know if you remember any of this, but I kind of, in the conversation I put together when I was teaching is I referred to it as you signed for the package. You accepted the package.
That was a good one.
So when you're operating in fear mode, you can't operate in fear and faith, whatever faith is to you at the same time. Whether your faith is in a deity or whether it's just in hope or whatever's good, it doesn't matter. You can't operate in both at the same time. And as soon as you start meditating, which only means whirling around in thought on whatever the thought or the thing is, as soon as you start meditating on that, you've just signed for the package. So, UPS with a box of fears knocking on your door. And as soon as you start thinking on it, you just answer the door and accept it and sign for the package. Right. And when you do that, things grow and they grow quickly, and it becomes a spiral that consumes your thoughts and affects you in so many ways. It's kind of a morbid joke. I just told B this. B's one of our dogs. Obviously, you know this, but for everybody who doesn't know. Because she just got back from San Francisco with her husband. They were traveling, and apparently it was a pretty rough flight.
Oh my gosh!
So I told her, I'm like, and they were pretty freaked out. Yeah. I'm like, it doesn't bother me much. First of all, I always watch the flight attendants.
Yes.
And make sure if they look nervous, okay, then maybe we should be a little nervous. But most of the time they don't. I guess they're used to it. I've never really seen them get flustered.
I've been on them where they are, but yeah.
Was I with you?
No, when I was by myself.
Oh, okay. Well, I haven't, so it's worked for me so far. But I remember just telling her a couple days ago, I'm like, it's better when you're all together, the whole family. I said, because that way,
we're all together.
Something happens, the whole family's gone at once. I know it's morbid, but nobody suffers.
That's true. Well, that's what I used to think.
What a terrible joke, but
But I feel like that's why I used to get so upset because we'd be gone and our kids are all left here. If something happens, we're both gone, from our kids. So I feel like that's what I just let it build and get so.
Yeah, you're whirling on the thought,
Yeah.
but and that's that layer of it. Let's go deeper.
Okay.
What about when it becomes a matter like with a spouse and your fear of somebody being faithful is stirring in your head,
Well, that can build.
which builds and the story grows.
Yep.
And
I've had that.
oftentimes when the story's whirling, it's not true.
No, right.
You're manufacturing it by signing for the package because
Exactly.
you've just accepted it.
And you let your mind just.
And now you whirl on it and it goes from here to here to here
And then what
to
happens?
here.
It
Well,
causes.
what happens is
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
How do you treat your spouse now?
Right. Well,
When
that's
they're
what.
completely unaware of what the heck's going on.
Exactly.
And you've got this whole story because of one little seed that was planted that you signed for.
Right. Yeah, and I remember dealing with that exact thing when we were early.
With me?
Yeah, early married.
Oh.
Because I was feeling, I was home pregnant and couldn't do anything, and you would be out with your friends and having fun and whatever, and my mind starts thinking
Are we
he's
going
doing
down that
stuff.
path again?
It's not bad.
Okay.
No, I'm saying I let my mind start thinking all these things, and I like if I'd call you, you wouldn't call me back, and I, would just let it build in my
Well,
head.
it almost sounds like you're saying I was insensitive. I was just out partying all the
No.
time and left you home.
No, I'm not
barefoot
saying
pregnant.
that at all. I'm not saying that at all.
Because that wasn't it.
No, I'm saying like
Okay.
maybe a specific situation I'm talking about or something. And I just remember that. And I remember thinking, who's he with? What's he doing? He won't answer my call, whatever it is. I think we had pagers back then. I don't know. But anyway.
That's why I didn't answer your call.
But oh man, and I remember letting it, because first of all, and I felt super insecure because I'm big and pregnant and whatever. And so, and I was 20, I was young. So, anyway, I just remember being so mad at you when you came home, because I made it a big thing in my head, thinking you already did something.
Yeah.
And you've always said to me, I've never given you a reason to not trust me. But I just remember being like, it's like I made it like you already did something.
Yeah. I remember those days.
Yeah, and
You were just flat out mean.
it was bad. It was, I would make it, that's a perfect example though.
But it's
I
a
would
story in
let
your
it-
head. You had no proof.
No,
Because
I
there
had
was
no
none.
reason to think that.
Yeah, I was just out.
just
So
built.
your story built
Yeah.
and you internalized it. And now it became something that you
Big fight.
impacted on me.
Yeah.
And so your story changes and affects our relationship.
Right. And it did. I mean, we struggled a lot at the beginning, but it was I would just let it cause huge issues.
So it's, there's fear usually starts something, but then the communication finishes it.
Oh, that's good.
Does that make sense? So the fear gets you all in that mode, and you've got this whole conversation going on. Now, some people, not just for a minute, it's for days, weeks, months, whatever, and they just keep it in, because there's a lot of people like me who don't share things they're concerned with.
Right.
But your behavior changes. And then the communication changes when somebody else or somebody around you, a loved one, a child, a husband, a wife, whatever, family members, friends, they don't even know
Right.
what's going on or what it stemmed from. They just think you're being a jerk.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know? So that's another layer of it, that the fear, really changes the communication because it's all in your head.
Exactly.
And nobody else knows it until you either address it or converse about it in some manner to where you give the person a chance to say, whoa, wait a minute. That's just not true. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
Why do you have this? Which brings what? Peace. Peace, resolve.
Yeah.
Because someone can settle and satisfy what you're fearful of or some of the things that you're stressing or have anxiety of, which stress and anxiety are just a form of fear. They are a form of fear, with that unequivocally. So it's just how they manifest themselves
Yeah.
in your life.
And fear's considered a sin, having fear, worry, I guess. And I remember thinking, but how do people literally not have any? I feel like
Yeah. So
that's a hard.
I always want to communicate in a way that people don't feel like we're pushing what we believe
No.
as faith. So we are people of faith.
Yeah.
But
I'm just-
it's really irrelevant because what it means is worry on a Christian perspective. Worry means you're saying that you don't believe in what God says and that the things and the promises in the Bible are true, because you can't operate in both worry and fear, same thing, and faith. So they're like the north and the south. You can't travel north and you can't travel south at the same time. It's impossible.
Yeah.
They're direct opposites. So if
Really good.
you could, that's a different story, but you can't. So whether you apply it to your personal faith or whatever else, it's still the same thing. If you operate in worry or fear at all, and it's going to visit all of us.
Yeah.
It's going to weave in and out throughout our lives, right?
Yeah, that's,
I mean, you've experienced.
oh yeah.
I have too. It's not about if it's going to come. It's about when it's going to come and what you do with it when it arrives.
Right.
I think that's what is what
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is that's what we were talking about, having the mindsets, the different things, because if you can figure out, if you're young or young married or whatever,
So valuable for them.
figure out these things early and not let it build and learn how to deal with it, it's so much more impactful and valuable than to let things just, like I said, we struggled for a long time to get to learn certain things. And like you said, it took almost a year for you to get your mind in a certain place to realize, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm okay.
The good part is that didn't involve somebody else.
No.
Most of the time it does.
Yeah.
But even if it doesn't, here's what I know also that I've learned in my own little private way, is that the fear also significantly limits or creates a ceiling for your career.
Yeah.
It creates a ceiling for you to become the best that you can be, because you've got a story inside your head that's saying you can't do
You're
that.
not good enough, or
You're not good enough to do that. You're not smart enough to do that.
yeah.
What makes you think that you're worthy
Right.
of making significant financial gains, or starting your own business, or climbing the corporate ladder, or whatever it is that you want to do to succeed? What makes you think that you can be beyond what you are today, even though you dropped out of high school, you have no college education? Why you? You can't do that. You're not smart enough.
Right.
That's the dialogue that goes through our heads,
Yeah.
that can block you. That dialogue went through my head.
Oh, and yeah,
all those things. And what I've learned at this point is, if you have fear, the only thing that will press through it is action.
Yeah, that's really
Which means it's in so many different capacities, right? What does action look like? So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Because if we know we all carry fear,
Right.
young people, old people alike, you see like my parents' side, that fear is a whole different level.
Yeah.
They're in their 70s, so their fear is of dying,
Yeah.
of being lonely, which, what is that fear doing to them? Creating the exact thing they fear. That's the crux of it.
Yeah.
So a lot of times the fear that we have, it will create the circumstance that we're fearful of.
Yeah.
It does.
That's good. Yeah.
And if it does, like on the spouse side, I've seen this where they're always fearful or jealous because they think their spouse is untrue to them, and they have no proof. No
Right.
proof. It's just what's spinning in their head. And so it changes. Remember we talked about it. It changes the communication.
Oh yeah.
And the communication changes, so there's a lot of tension or frustration
Fighting.
constantly. And at some point, guess what happens? The relationship's deteriorating because of your fear. The seed was fear way over here.
Yeah.
But as it's grown and
grown.
flourished because you've allowed it to stay there, it starts deteriorating the relationship. And then, guess what's possible? Guess
too
what
late.
door just opened up that may be there? Maybe an opportunity to, versus they got a little bit of flattery,
Yeah.
or from somebody else, or whatever else. And the next thing you know,
Then they're out the door.
yeah, there's a reason the divorce
Yeah.
rate's so high. So yeah, those are super important things that I think are important to remember.
Yep.
You have to address it, but you have to take action. So the action is go to the person.
Yeah.
If it's a person related
It's
fear,
that. Yeah.
go to the person. What about if it's your own personal fear?
I like public speaking. Go do it.
Go do
Do
it.
it. I mean,
Do it.
Try
Just
and
do it.
Face your fear. Face your fears is what like you've said before, and we've
Step
talked about
into it.
Yeah, just face it. If it's you want a promotion, go for it. Like, don't be, just try. And there's been other things, like, what did you used to say? You say, what's the worst can happen? They can tell you no or
Exactly.
whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not going to hurt, it might hurt, but I'm just
Never
saying
hurts.
it's like,
But you're
Yeah.
building a story so much bigger
Right.
of what's
Just
going to
go
happen when
for
the
it.
reality is
Yeah.
most of the things we fear. So when we fear a worst case scenario, it's like this way down here.
yeah.
So I've always taught the girls, look, you take the worst case and the best case, and you take the two of them, and you're going to land somewhere in the middle.
yeah.
I've never, ever, I don't think we've ever, together or individually, you'd have to tell me on your side, individually, been in a situation where our fears landed us at the worst possible situation.
No.
It's never, ever been as bad as what your mind will go to and
Right.
tell you that the worst scenario is going to be.
Yeah.
Never. It's always somewhere in between. So when we learn from that,
Yeah.
what I've learned from that is don't waste the time. Don't spend all the time on that.
Don't give
Letting
it the
that-
power.
Don't give it the power.
Yeah.
Don't let it permeate in your mind because it's destructive. It's untrue. And it's your overactive mind and the fear that you have, coming in at the same time, pouring in, that's stirring, that's just
building.
a falsity.
Yep.
It's just a falsity. It's not true. So what do? You take action
Take
towards
action, yes.
one of the-
Whatever that is.
one of the greatest things. I believe that when we experience fears, it's usually the greatest sign or the most clear objective we have of the thing that needs to be done. Does that make sense?
It's good, yeah.
So in other words, if you fear that business transition, you press and do it anyway. If you fear public speaking, you press and do it anyway.
Right.
Put yourself in an uncomfortable position because, man, when you clear that fear and you step through it,
Get out of your comfort zone, yeah.
it's such an amazing relief.
Yeah.
How did you
Feel
feel?
like I did it.
How
I
did
was
you
like,
feel
I did
after
it.
you finished?
I was glad it was over. And like I said, I was
Always,
super glad it was over, and I felt like it was awful, but I was relieved. I was super relieved and just glad that I did it and I didn't turn it down. Because like you said,
Gave you confidence, didn't it?
yeah, and there was something I can't remember what it is. Something about growing, helping you grow, or
It's
something.
stretching
Yeah,
your growth
stretching.
muscles.
That's what it was. Yes, that's exactly what it was.
I say that all the time.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. But yeah, I felt that way. I was like, okay, I did it. It's over. I felt more confident because I did it, not necessarily how it went, but because I did it.
Well, I'm proud of you for doing it, number one, and I remember that time for sure. And I encouraged you
Yeah, you did.
to do it. I'm
Yeah.
like, just do it. Suck
So
it
I
up.
was like,
just
what-
do it.
how can I get
Go
out of
do
it?
I can't do it. I don't publish. Just do it. Just do it.
Oh,
Just do
yeah.
it. Just do it. And that's really how it goes.
Yeah,
And when you step through the
almost.
other side, oh man, it feels so good.
Yeah, it does build your
That's-
confidence.
Yeah, for sure.
sure.
That's what steps you up a level. And then you have a little different lens that you're looking through. It's like somebody wiped a little bit of the haze off, and now you see some other things in your
Right.
life that you would have never thought possible because you just had this moment that you stepped through that gave you confidence, encouragement, and you're like, hey, I just did that.
Yeah.
I actually did that. So I think it's a great way for people to grow,
Yep.
to be able to find more in their life, which not more as in, well, actually more as in everything. It can create more value in you and you create more value. It'll increase your finances, all different types of things, but it will also create more fulfillment.
Yeah.
And that's where it really comes from.
everybody, yeah.
Peace, happiness,
Yeah.
because everybody wants to succeed. I believe we were created to create.
Well, that's good.
And if we're not creating something, life gets a little boring,
Yep. It's true.
So
So take action.
takes
Anything,
action,
yeah.
press into it,
Yeah.
and don't let fear just swim in
Overcome
your mind. Stop the conversation. Don't sign for the package.
Right.
Go to the person if there's a person involved in it. That's the biggest thing we've learned.
Yeah.
And talk through that so they can ease it in, especially if it's your spouse.
Right.
Because it could be completely untrue and may just be a moment of, weakness, or like you were feeling insecure
Yeah.
because you were pregnant and, weren't looking your best and everything else. Didn't make it true,
No, not at all. I'm just
but
building it
it
in my
was
head.
you. And guess who suffers for it? You and me.
Yeah, we both did.
So we both suffer from it. So Yeah. Take action, find out, and press in. And man, you'll be amazed at how you'll feel when you conquer that fear. And then in time, you start recognizing the pattern.
Yep.
And the coolest thing is you find a different way to handle it. And it doesn't have, so some people call it being thick skin.
Yeah.
That's what that is coined as. It just means that you've got a new resilience because it doesn't have the same impact on you as it did before because you've seen how to walk through it.
Yeah, you don't let it fear have a hold on you. That's the saying.
That's cool.
But, yep.
That's cool. I'm so grateful that we see and recognize these things because it helps us have so much more of a better relationship, better life, not just with each other, but with everyone in business, and the stresses and tensions that come from day-to-day activities. They just lessen because your perspective grows. And that's what it's really all about.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
there you go.
Yeah.
That's our 2 cents. Take it for what it's worth.
Yep.
It was free.
Yep.
I'm Shawn.
And I'm Kori.
And this is Conversations Left Behind. We hope that you join us for another episode. But if you like this episode,
Subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment.
any of the above.
Yep.
We love to chat and hear what some of the audience is saying. And if you have any thoughts on the topic, we'd love to talk about those too. So, till next time.